We have tons of NHL news and rumors to take a look at here today, just a few days ahead of the NHL draft and free agency. Today's trade rumors focus on a variety of teams, including the Montreal Canadiens, the Toronto Maple Leafs, Vancouver Canucks, St. Louis Blues, Minnesota Wild, Buffalo Sabres, and the LA Kings. Plus, we're going to talk about should the Oilers be fearful of an Evan Bouchard offer sheet. We're going to take a look at some of the top UFAs and the speculation around them, including Mitch Marner, Aaron Ekblad, Brad Marchand, Sam Bennett, top UFA goalie Jake Allen as well, plus some updates on the CBA and a few other news and notes around the league, including a signing in Vegas. All that and more coming up next. Welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have tons of information to take a look at here today ahead of the NHL draft and free agency. Lots of speculation about player movement, which we'll get into here momentarily. First, I want to take a look at a couple other things. It was also a Board of Governors meeting today ahead of things. Things are starting to get set up and ready for the draft in LA on Friday, and the Board of Governors meeting did provide a few updates today. Nothing really overly substantial. I know we were hoping for the possibility that they may have a chance to put the CBA in front of the governors for vote on their side, and of course to bring it to the players to vote, but it's not reached that stage. We're not at a point where the new CBA can be voted upon yet and ratified, but they are continuing to use the same language, that they're getting closer and that there's lots of positivity and all that. So some of the speculation around some of the items being discussed that we haven't already heard. We already heard about the fact that they're looking at LTIR and trying to figure out a way to manage a salary cap of sorts in the playoffs to prevent teams from having a roster that goes way over. We're also, I'd heard before about contract length maybe changing, offer with the 8 years going to 7 and 7 down to 6 for depending on if you're a UFA leaving your team or staying with an extension or whatnot. And there's other stuff today. There's a possibility that they're discussing the schedule and maybe expanding the regular season from 82 to 84. That's gotten mixed reviews, I think, on social media here today. One thing that would come with that, though, if they do proceed with the 84-game schedule, is that they would shorten training camp in the preseason. So that may not be all bad. They might have a few more games, but at least they're games that would count and less of the games that don't count. So that's a possibility. That is something that's being discussed. There's also looking at standardizing draft rights, which I think is huge because right now, depending on if a player goes from the CHL or if they're in the college system, like it's completely different rules. A player can go through 4 years of college rights before they lose their rights with their NHL club, whereas the CHL prospects only have their rights held for a couple of years. So it's completely different. So they are looking to have a standardized approach to no matter where the player comes from, or whether they're doing their junior hockey or development hockey leading into being pro, that it won't matter. The rights will be their rights, and that'll be standardized across the board, which would be good. Also, some updates when it comes to expansion. They're not at a point where anybody's able to put forth like anything to vote on or anything like that. There's no official application that's going to be done, but there was more rumors about the groups in Atlanta and Houston, both again having more meetings, more interest, getting steps to being closer. I think it's really a matter of when they get a team, not if they get a team. It looks very promising, I must say, from what we've heard in the past. So we'll see, but there's definitely some, I guess, positive steps forward. But again, nothing concrete, nothing ready to be official or to be voted on or anything of that nature. So lots of other updates that I'm sure we'll probably learn about here in the coming days as we get closer to the draft. But lots of good things, but nothing too concrete here just yet. The only other thing for news, two other quick pieces of news, and we're going to get into a lot of the speculation. One, Vegas re-signed Riley Smith today. He's remaining where he, obviously one of the original misfits, back to Vegas at the trade deadline. Signs a 1-year extension at $2 million. So really, for what Riley Smith is able to give you, that's a pretty fair deal. We'll see where things go with Vegas. We'll talk with them here more in just a moment on some of what their plans might be. And the other thing is the Dallas Stars head coaching position right now appears to be between a couple of people. One, Neil Graham, of course, who coached their farm club in the AHL, and Glenn Gulletson, of course, who we mentioned before, who has coached Dallas in the past and has been a long-time assistant coach with the Edmonton Oilers, was also a head coach with the Flames before as well. They appear to be the two finalists. So we'll see what direction Jim Nill and the Dallas Stars go in. I would suspect that they would want to have a decision made here in the next couple of days before they get too hard into the draft and free agency, but no clear-cut definitive timeline on when they're going to announce their decision on that front. Now, lots of speculation. Let's get into some UFA stuff. Then we're going to talk about RFAs and Evan Bouchard and some trade stuff. So on the UFA front, I know Darren Dreger had some intel on Mitch Marner. And there's a bunch of people out there that are convinced, and I've been saying this for a few weeks now, so I guess you can throw me in that group as well. But there's a lot of belief that Mitch Marner is going to land in Vegas. Now, but there's been a lot of speculation about what kind of contract he's going to be looking for. I know there's been still some Leaf reporters saying that they wouldn't rule out a sign-and trade just yet. I honestly think we can. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think Mitch wants an 8-year deal. As we know, the cap's going up substantially here in the next 2-3 years. A lot of the top players, I think, are going to consider shorter contracts to be able to maximize their earnings. So I've not really seen any real concrete reports that I feel comfortable enough saying that I think he's going to sign for 8 years. Maybe he will. You can't rule it out. But of course, once we get past June 30th, it's not an option anymore. I think Leaf reporters are hoping the Leafs get something in return, even if it's just a draft pick or something. But I think the ship has sailed. I think Marner is going to sign a shorter deal. There was some intel back a few days ago around maybe even considering a 2-year deal. Dreger says he doesn't think that's going to be the case for Mitch Marner, that he thinks it's going to be 4 or 5 years. So again, I honestly think when it comes to Marner, in the past, Dreger's always been one of the most accurate reporters on him. I swear he gets info. This is just a gut feeling, but I think he gets info right from Paul Marner himself, Mitch's father. We're going to say that he's probably onto something, and I think a 4 or 5 year deal with the Vegas Golden Knights is the most likely outcome. But again, we're not at July 1 yet. Theoretically, they're not even supposed to be talking to other teams, but you know what happens. It happens all the time. And we'll see here in the near future what the full outcome will be. When it comes to the guys in Florida, the latest intel there suggests that Aaron Ekblad is getting closer to being on the way out. I know the latest update from Daily Faceoff was that Ekblad is trending towards departing, that there seems less likely that they're going to be able to get something done there. The belief around Sam Bennett is that it's pretty much done. I don't think Florida, though, wants to announce anything until they have concluded negotiations with all 3 of these players. I think they want to kind of play the cards close and make sure that they can kind of not have a full sense with all the agents of what the cap space is going to be, so that they don't announce one and that one they announce impacts the others and so on. It's possible. I wouldn't be shocked if they do sign Brad Marchand, and right now things are trending in a direction that there's a good chance it can happen, that maybe they announce Bennett and Marchand back to back or at the same time. I think things are trending based on what we've heard that good chance, but Ekblad to me seems to be the most likely to leave, and it does seem like a bit of a stretch that they could get all 3 unless they make a cost-cutting move. If they end up announcing a trade for, I don't know, maybe like an Evan Rodriguez or a player that's lower in the lineup that's just to free up an extra couple million in space or something, then maybe that would be, my gut would say that they're making room to keep Ekblad, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think he's going to get big term and big money on the free agent market. There's not a lot of, high-end right shot defenseman that's available to sign. There are some that are out there, but of his caliber, what he brings with experience and back-to-back cups, former first overall pick, a guy who can play, pretty physical game and give you a little bit of offense to boot. There's not a lot of guys like him that you can just go sign right now. So I think he's going to be able to command big bucks. And I think he's probably going to have to feel compelled that he needs to take that for his future. So we'll see what happens in that front. And the top goalie on the free agent market is Jake Allen, of course, formerly or soon to be formerly, at least I think, of the New Jersey Devils. The Devils goaltender appears as though he's likely moving on, but I know there are some reporters out there that think that the Devils are going to maybe take a last stab at possibly keeping him. However, given what they have in their system and how they set things up the way they did when they were fixing their goaltending before last year, I think they kind of wanted to have one of their goalies they acquired in a 1-year deal situation, which was what Jake had left on his contract. And of course, they got Markstrom, who had more term left. I honestly think if they considered bringing Jake back, it would probably be on a 1-year deal. And considering what the market is like for UFA goalies, like all the reporters are calling him the belle of the ball. He's the top guy that's out there. He can get more term than 1 year. And if you're Jake Allen, from what I know, and we do share a hometown, I don't obviously speak to Jake personally, but I mean, I've met him numerous times, but at the end of the day, I do know a lot of people that know him, small town. The belief is, from what I've heard, is that he would like to have, ideally, if he can get it, one more contract for 2 to 3 years and not have to move his family anymore. He's already was, a long time in St. Louis, moved to Montreal. He really liked it there. Time ran out. Goes to New Jersey. He was there for from the trade deadline into 1 season. And I don't think his kids are getting to be, like, his oldest is in school now. They've got 3 kids. Like, they don't really want to be moving around a lot, right? So I think if he can get one more contract to kind of settle in and kind of ride things out, I think that's probably what he would prefer. Now, obviously, I think he'll look at what's offered for money. I think he'll look at what's offered for term and all that, opportunity to win to some degree. He's got a Stanley Cup, so I'm not sure what's most important to him, but I know where he's at. One team that does make a lot of sense is Philadelphia, and I think that there is interest from Philly. Now, I did see reporting today from Anthony DeMarco. His intel said that Jake wouldn't be looking for as much as $5 million. And the Flyers are, and they're not as bad for cap space as some teams, but I personally don't think that he's going to be looking for that much. I don't know that Jake's ever made that much. I think even when he was in his prime with the Blues, he was making a little bit under that. Good goalie, but more of a tandem goalie or a backup at this stage of his career. I don't know that there's too many teams that are going to offer $5 million personally. But if he can get it, I'm sure he'll probably take it. But I know there was some talk about the LA Kings maybe being interested to bring in a more solid backup behind Darcy Kuemper. Again, I don't know if heading west is something he wants to do, but there's definitely teams out there. LA and Philly are a couple of them for sure. I wouldn't completely rule out the New York Islanders because I think, as far as I know, and correct me if I'm wrong if you're an Isles fan, but I do think that there is some concern over Semyon Varlamov. I know he missed a lot of time, and if he's not going to be able to play, then that would make sense. If he's coming back, then obviously it doesn't make sense. So, obviously there's enough teams there that are interested. And we'll see what happens with Jake, but I do think that he's got a strong enough case to command at least 2, if not 3-year contract. I think more likely in that $3 to $4 million range to be more of a tandem goalie, and I think he's looking for one more spot to play for 2-3 years, and then he'll be into his pretty late 30s at that point and likely hang him up. But we'll see what happens. Now, some stuff on the Edmonton Oilers. One, of course, in case you missed it earlier, Evander Kane was traded today. There is a video on the channel kind of outlining that. Evander Kane was traded to the Canucks for a 4th-round pick today. That gives the Oilers an extra $5 million plus in cap space. We knew that Evander Kane and Victor Arvidsson's names were both out there in the trade market. Evander Kane gets to go to his hometown. A little bit surprising on the Vancouver side. I mean, considering all the drama they went through with Pettersson and Miller, and then they just kind of moved past that. And, Kane, I know he's more mature, he's older. I don't think he had issues with Edmonton like he did in other situations, and I'm not really sure that that's played a role here. But I know, just with his history, I don't know, that seems iffy to me if you're Vancouver to bring him in and to bring him into that locker room. But, at the same time, he's in a contract year. He's proven that he can still play. He can be productive. I wonder if they're looking at him as being like a Brock Besser replacement or something, much older than Brock. But I don't know. It's just a little bit confusing, but it is what it is. The Canucks get a guy who's got lots of experience and can score and be physical. He's in a contract year, so hopefully he plays well for them. And then the Oilers get some cap space that they muchly need. I know the other thing with the Oilers today is should they really be worried about an Evan Bouchard offer sheet? And, there was some talk between the Bob Stauffer show with Brian Lawton. Lawton thinks that they should absolutely be very concerned about a predatory offer sheet coming as soon as, that they get past July 1st, and when those offer sheets are something that'd be eligible to be done. He thinks that they need to make sure they get the player signed ahead of that to avoid any possible scenario. We saw them get attacked last year with Holloway and Broberg. Obviously, Bouchard, I think, wants to be an Oiler. But, if a team throws a ridiculous amount of money at him, it's going to be awfully hard to turn down. The belief is they might try to go with a shorter term, maybe like 4 years, in order to kind of keep his AAV down a little bit. But, at the end of the day, it might not matter too much. And the belief is he's going to get somewhere around the $10 million mark. But obviously, teams know the cap situation. There's teams out there that have a lot of it and that could afford to throw a ridiculous offer sheet at a player like Bouchard if they really wanted to overpay on a short-term contract to be successful to get the player. Now, obviously, they're not going to go high to the point where they get to pay four first-round picks or anything of that nature, but they could put the Oilers in a predicament. Even if they know that they might not get the player, it could certainly hurt the Oilers from having to match it. So, we'll have to watch this situation, and, the Oilers do only have a short period of time now to get him signed. Now, the other thing is he is eligible for arbitration. Once you file for arbitration, that takes the offer sheet out of the equation. It can't be done at that point. So, maybe they take him to team elected arbitration. They could do that. They can still negotiate, afterwards. But obviously, there's things that they can do to protect themselves. But yeah, I think they do need to be worried about it, and they need to get it looked after as soon as possible. Now, Ken Holland, the former GM of the Oilers, who's now the GM of the Los Angeles Kings, some updates from him after speaking to the media today. One, he all but confirms that Jordan Spence wants a trade and is likely to be traded. We've talked about the young defenseman before, speculating that he could be moved. Now, I think after hearing Holland's comments, I think it's very, very likely. I'd throw Alex Turcotte's name also into the mix as a young player that's getting some interest for teams that might be looking for some, under the radar younger players that may not have, kind of developed into what they're supposed to yet, trying to find some cheaper talent that might, still be like late bloomers, if you will. And I think he's getting some interest. So Turcotte and Spence are players you could see moved. If they do land a big fish, then I can see Trevor Moore being a trade target. I've said that before. Ultimately, when it comes to Jordan Spence, though, Holland's comments basically says that, he's made it clear that he wants to play more. He wants to be in the lineup all the time. Feels like he deserves to play on a regular basis. And like I said, that kind of leads us to think that that's basically his way of saying, yeah, he wants to move on. But Brent Clark is expected to, they're going to give him every opportunity ahead of Spence. You still got Drew Doughty. There's just not room for a consistent spot for Spence in the lineup, and it's also believed that they don't really want Clark and Spence both in the lineup. They want a different mix, right? So Jordan Spence very, very likely to be moved. Ken Holland also admitted that he is open to maybe moving their first round pick, which is obviously a bit later into the draft. I think they're at I believe it's 24th that they're selecting. If he can get a good top 6, top 9 forward, then he is open to moving that pick. So you might see that as well. And there is also belief with the Kings that there is some mutual interest to possibly get Andrei Kuzmenko signed to a new short-term contract to remain with the Los Angeles Kings. Now, another player who's been in the trade rumor mill, but according to one NHL insider today, again, this one's TSN's Darren Dreger, stating that he doesn't think it's leading that way, could end up with a contract instead, and that's Thatcher Demko in Vancouver. Dreger says that as much as the Canucks were kind of gauging the market, if you will, a little bit on Demko, that they've also had contract extension talks, and he thinks that there is a path to getting a contract done, and that they might actually be close to getting that lined up, so that when it comes to July 1st, he might be able to sign and remain with Vancouver for a few more years. Now, of course, we don't know exactly what kind of term they're talking about here, but of course, after signing Kevin Lankinen, the belief was that he was almost as good as gone, and that it was going to be tough for them to afford both goaltenders, and I do think it will be. I'm not sure that Demko's going to take a whole lot of a pay cut. I mean, he's not making a ton of money now, but with his injuries that he's gone through, maybe we'll see. I guess it might kind of show us how badly he wants to be in Vancouver. The belief is that they do move forward with this contract extension, though, that the latest Calder Cup winning goaltender, Arthur Sheeloffs, would likely become available, because after getting a taste of playoff hockey himself, then having such a good season, winning the Calder Cup in the AHL this year, that if he gets sees that Demko, who's ahead of him, along with Lankinen, are both signed for multiple years, it's going to make it awfully tough for him to make it to the NHL. He's going to be stuck as being a third-string goalie, and if there is a team out there who can give him a better path to the NHL, then he might be a guy to kind of look out for. So it might make him available. So we might see a different goalie move on if Demko does ink an extension there. Now, as time's gone on, Frank Saravalli, dailyfaceoff.com, has become more and more convinced, more and more likely. He thinks that Jordan Kyrou could be traded out of St. Louis. The belief is, like we said, that they've had talks with a variety of teams around this player, including a potential swap for Noah Dobson. Not necessarily a one-for-one, but some kind of package that would involve Kyrou and Dobson swapping spots between the New York Islanders and the Blues. Of course, nothing has materialized as of yet, but there has been some, at least preliminary discussions. But Kyrou's a name that has a no trade clause kicking in July 1st, and it's kind of a case where the Blues might feel like, not necessarily totally regretting that big contract extension that they gave him, but looking at things now and thinking, okay, we want to change our mix a little bit. We don't have a super young team, but we don't have a super old team. Maybe we need to change a little bit here. We got Kyrou with a no trade kicking in. If we don't move him now, we're going to be stuck with a big term of that contract where we can't really move him or without any leverage anyways. Looking at the emerging young rookie like Jimmy Snuggerud, they kind of see Snuggerud as his replacement and say, well, you know what? Snuggerud himself might not be able to replace Kyrou's production, at least in the coming year. In a few years down the road, maybe he can, but even if he doesn't next year, you throw in and say another player that maybe you can bring in at half of Kyrou's price. Maybe those two players together by committee can give you the same production as Kyrou, and you get more kind of cap flexibility to go along with it. You get out of a contract that has a lot of protection in it that you're not going to be dealing with anymore, and you might get another asset that you really like coming back. So again, Kyrou is a name to watch. He's skyrocketed up Frank's trade bait board, so he feels he's quite likely now to get moved. He's also mentioned about the Toronto Maple Leafs today, and Brandon Carlo. Carlo's name has jumped up on the trade bait board coming out of nowhere, and this is not a case for Leaf fans, just so you know. He made it clear this is not a case of the Leafs out there shopping him, trying to get rid of him. It's not like they've traded for him and have regrets now or anything of that nature. He's right shot, he's got good size, and he's got a good contract. He's the kind of player a lot of teams are always looking for. And as much as the Leafs, like I said, weren't actively looking to move this player, it doesn't sound like it's something they were actively doing or had in mind. But apparently they're getting a lot of calls and a lot of interest in this player. And as we know, the Maple Leafs have a lot of kind of balls in the air, a lot of openings on their roster, a lot of uncertainty. Is Mitch Marner gone? Is John Tavares gone? If so, there's a couple of big holes. We might need to bring in a couple of more forwards that give you good production. How are we going to get that? There's not a lot in free agency. Do we have to go the trade route? If so, what do we move? Oh, Carlo's getting a lot of attention here. Maybe we use that. Except it's not a case where they're like, oh, we don't like Carlo anymore, we want to move him. That's not it at all. It's just with so much uncertainty around the team, teams are calling them basically and saying like, hey, I know you're probably going to need a forward. We really like him. What do you think? It's kind of that type of chatter at this point, so we'll see. Doesn't mean they move him. Like they said, they're not actively trying to, but there is interest, and it could lead to something. David Kampf is a player as well that they would really like to move out of their bottom six, and I guess depending on how things go, they could look at a buyout near the end of the buyout window if the trade does not materialize, but Kampf is another player they are actively trying to move. Now, Jeff Merrick also mentioned today about JJ Peterka. Now, we know the Sabres have had a lot of chatter around him when it comes to this player. And Kevin Adams, of course, spoke to the media. A lot of GMs are doing that ahead of the draft. And to me, it wasn't a great press conference, to be honest. This really didn't give fans a lot of inspiring confidence. But when it comes to Peterka, it sounds like they still are not real thrilled that they feel like they need to do this, but it sounds like they kind of feel like they need to. Merrick had mentioned on his program that it sounds like ownership has finally signed off on moving this player, because that's how involved their ownership is. And Kevin Adams can't really do a lot without Terry Pegula signing off on it. And obviously with a young asset like Peterka with a lot of potential coming off a really good season, he's going to have to explain to his owner why he wants to trade him. And it's not even so much that he really wants to, but feel like he kind of needs to based on the player's wishes. He needs a new contract. If he won't sign, or maybe he gets down to it and says, I'll sign a 1-year deal, but you got to trade me. The players do get leverage even when they're not UFAs. So it sounds like, according to Merrick, that he has, as an owner, signed off on this idea now. So he is making a deal more and more likely. So again, lots of teams interested in Peterka. We've probably heard about 7 or 8. Hard to say how close they are. I'm not sure that anything's imminent or anything like that. But there's more teams inquiring, and it sounds like the GM has the owner's blessing to do so if he makes it there and gets the offer he's looking for. Now, when it comes to the Islanders, we've heard lots of stuff about trying to get an extra first-round pick, and Noah Dobson's name is out there. Another name that is out there is Jean-Gabriel Pageau. There are reports today indicating that the Minnesota Wild might be a team to watch when it comes to acquiring Pageau. Obviously, there was some talk about Marco Rossi. It's still believed there's a chance he could be moved, and it wouldn't be shocking if the Islanders were a team that were interested. I don't think you're not going to get Rossi for Pageau straight up, but I wonder if they do like Pageau, if the Islanders especially are willing to eat a little bit of that salary. I do wonder what the chances are that they could maybe build a package to maybe get Rossi included. I'm not sure what else they'd have to give up. Obviously, the Islanders are not going to want to move any of their prize, because they have a few really good prospects now, like Yzerman and Ritchie. Obviously we know about Dobson. I don't think that the Wild would have any interest in Dobson. They've got a lot of their own young D there, so doesn't make sense that way, but maybe there's something else on the roster that they like, but it would take more than Pageau for sure. But even if it's not Rossi, the Wild reportedly do have interest in him as a depth centerman. And in Montreal, there's belief as well that they are trying to see if they can get themselves a number 2 center. And if they can't find a number 2 center they like, they are open to getting another top 6 winger. But the picks that they have in a 2025 draft, 16 and 17, are very much in play if they can find themselves a nice forward that can play up on their lineup that they like, preferably a center, is what they're trying to do. So they are actively working on that. And it's not just those picks. I do think there's other assets they would be willing to include. They have lots of picks in other rounds, other years, as well as prospects that a lot of teams like. So certainly watch Montreal. They may not end up making a pick at the draft, or maybe they only have one. It wouldn't be shocking to see them make a trade involving one or both of those picks if they can find that younger forward that they really like. So we'll see what happens there. Andre Miller's gotten a lot of attention out of the Rangers organization. The belief is that there is interest from the Columbus Blue Jackets as well. They're another team that's been linked to this player. I know Larry Brooks had a latest report saying that he believes the Rangers would be high on Dmitry Voronkov, and that maybe that could be the beginning of a package to work out for a Andre Miller trade. But I'm like, I don't know. I think there's going to be teams out there that like Andre Miller and will definitely take a chance on him and will give you something decent in a trade for the young D-man. But I'm not sure that Columbus really wants to move Voronkov. I can see why the Rangers would have interest, but I don't know that that's going to be what it takes. Now, Columbus has multiple first-rounders. Maybe they are willing to offer something along those lines. It's kind of hard to say, but no matter what happens here, those are 2 players that each of these teams are linked to, and that reporters are kind of watching to see if that's something they would do. I don't know that Columbus wants to move Voronkov, but it's I can see why the Rangers would ask about him, and I can see if they want Miller, why that might be how the conversations go. But there's definitely other interest in Miller as well, whereas Voronkov is a new player that we haven't really heard much speculation around, so I don't think Columbus is really shopping him in any way, shape, or form. I think this is just a case of other teams like the Rangers liking him and asking, say, if you want our guy that we have, I'd love to have that guy off your roster. And I'm pretty sure the answer likely would be no, but we will see where things go and how negotiations continue. So that is all your news and rumors for tonight. So make sure you subscribe and stick around if you haven't already done so. This will be the place in the next few days, especially to get all your updates around the 2025 NHL draft. We'll be doing lots of draft coverage. There'll be another final mock draft coming up. Lots of draft trade talk. Lots of videos or reporting on everything that happens at the draft, as well as all the news and rumors and free agency and the rest of the offseason. So stay tuned for that if you haven't already subscribed. Make sure you do so, and I'll catch you next time.